Hello everyone, my name is Alexis. Today I'll be responding to Gallardo Ortiz in the topic about Russia, Ukraine, and NATO. Gallardo believes that NATO should be using military force against Russia, which I entirely disagree. He makes good points, has a good conversation, debate about the situation, and I appreciate that, but I disagree with a lot of the things he said. First of all, let's start with NATO. He said NATO was he had a strong military, and he also said Trump was wrong when he called NATO weak. I think I do agree with Trump in making that statement about NATO. NATO does have some weak aspects. I think leadership is weak. I think they have a lot of other problems. If NATO was actually strong, Russia would have never invaded Ukraine. And Russia knows this. Russia knows NATO is not in a good position right now. That's why they invaded Ukraine. Russia knows this, and Russia knows they could take on NATO if they were to get into the war, if they were to use military force. Russia has those alliances the professor talked about, and the professor said Russia might have been prepared for the war, which I do agree with the professor based on what we're seeing right now. A lot of countries have opted out of sanctions against Russia. They keep doing business with Russia. China, which I think the biggest alliance Russia currently has, and those alliances are ready to take on NATO if they decide to use military force. Gallardo also says that NATO has obligation of helping Ukraine, which I entirely disagree with. NATO has no obligation of helping Ukraine. That's because Ukraine is not a member of NATO. So why should NATO be helping a country that has not contributed anything to NATO? If that's really important. Ukraine has they've been helping Ukraine with military equipment, with a lot of money. NATO is doing everything it can, but I think military force just crosses a line that would make the situation worse, and it would affect us, affect every country. It would affect the world economy. And Russia is not directly attacking us in our land, so why would NATO be involved? They're just fighting with Ukraine. They're not fighting with us, and we hate to see what's going on, and it's not okay. But I think they gotta continue the war, and if NATO wants to help financially, they can, but using military force is a big no. That would get every country of NATO would get every country into World War III. It would get the US into World War III, and that would be it's not like, oh, we get into war with Russia, we beat them, and it's over. No, Russia has those alliances I referenced, like China, that are ready to jump on board with Russia to fight the war. Gallardo also said Russia was a bad guy, and said it wasn't okay for countries to be invading other countries. I also want to reference that this is not the first time a country invades another country. Let's not forget the US has invaded a lot of countries, and that was one of the points Russia made. How he said, the Russian president said, why is the US allowed to invade other countries, but when other countries invade other countries, they are against it? So it's not only Russia, the evil country, it's a lot of countries, including our own, that have used power to take over countries, like they did to Mexico, and they invaded like other countries with no justification, some of them with no justification. So that was important to also reference. Invasion is nothing new. It's happened and will continue happening in the future. And bottom line, NATO has no obligation of helping Ukraine. Ukraine is not part of NATO. Therefore, NATO has no obligation of getting involved in the war with, using military against Russia. No, that would be a tremendous mistake when you have Russia, one of the most powerful countries, fighting against NATO. It would be a tremendous destructive war. So no, NATO doesn't need to be involved in the war. They could help, financially or with weapons, but using military force is a big no. It would make the whole situation worse, and it would destroy our world rapidly. It's a big no. And well, that's my argument with due respect. And thank you, Lardo, for sharing, and it was nice listening to your point of view. Everybody sees the world different, everybody has different opinions, and that's okay. But always, having those conversations with respect is really important. And as I said, with the respect, I do this with the respect, this response. And thank you. Bye.